Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway. Get everything you need for your Easter celebration. Safeway makes it easy with spiral sliced ham, fresh spring flowers, and candy for your Easter baskets. Get started at Safeway.com or in the Safeway app.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
It's a wet and snowy day in Colorado as we head into a holiday weekend when many are celebrating Passover and Easter. If you're going into the mountains, drive carefully. There's a winter weather advisory in effect. Along the Front Range, there's a good chance of snow again tomorrow. So, when the CU Buffs play their spring game at Folsom Field, it will indeed feel like football weather. I'm Bazi Kanani. Coming up, Alabama isn't backing down from the battle for Space Command headquarters.
Space Command makes Colorado Springs, without question right now, the heart and soul of military space operations in the country.
Then, another type of congressional battle over funding for Medicaid. A Colorado Republican warns party leaders against proposed cuts.
Protecting Medicaid services for those who need it most is a critical priority for us.
Plus, he's a vigilante in a cat suit. But this weekend in Metro Denver, he'll be more like a bunny, the Easter one. It's Friday, April 18th. Here's the news in Colorado today. An old feud has new life under the Trump administration. This one's about space. Colorado and Alabama each say they should be the home of the U.S. Space Command headquarters. An Alabama lawmaker who wants to reverse the decision the Biden administration made to keep it in Colorado Springs requested a review of the decision, and that report came out this week. CPR's Dan Boyce joins us from Colorado Springs. Dan, if Space Command were to move to Alabama, how would that impact Colorado Springs?
We have heard in the past that local and regional economic impact is estimated to be in the tens of millions of dollars a year. That's quite a bit for the size of Space Command's personnel as well. Between your military and civilian employees, it's less than 2,000 people. On top of that, it's also symbolically so important. Colorado Springs, it already has the largest share of Space Force workers. I won't get into the whole explanation, but Space Force is different than Space Command. Space Command has all the military branches involved. Having all those Space Force workers and Space Command makes Colorado Springs, without question right now, the heart and soul of military space operations in the country.
Certainly, there's a lot of pride in having it here. And of course, Colorado lawmakers are working hard to keep it here.
Absolutely, and in a really unified way. Here's Colorado Representative Lauren Boebert.
The national security risks that arose over the past few years has made it even more critical for Space Command to stay put. It is fully operational. And I've been having conversations with President Trump for months now in hopes that we can keep that in Colorado.
Dan, can you remind us, what is Space Command exactly? And why is there still this debate about where it's located?
What we have now is the second iteration of Space Command. It was originally developed during the Cold War, but in the last decade, the U.S. has worried more about the space capabilities of other great powers, Russia, China, that sort of thing. So during his first term, President Trump was like, hey, let's bring back Space Command. And it was put here in Colorado Springs because that's where it used to be. But then after years of wrangling between a number of cities about where it would be headquartered on a permanent basis, the decision eventually came down to Colorado Springs and Huntsville.
So Space Command started in Colorado. What makes Huntsville a strong contender?
According to initial DoD estimates, it would be cheaper in the long run to build in Huntsville. And Donald Trump, he chose Huntsville in his final days in office, but he lost the election. And then Colorado's entire delegation lobbied Biden hard under national security terms to keep it in the Springs. And in 2023, they got their wish.
And that brings us to this week. Those Alabama lawmakers requested the Department of Defense investigate the decision the Biden administration made. What does this new report say?
Much of the same, that in the long run, it would have been cheaper to build in Alabama, but that Colorado Springs has had this huge leg up with existing infrastructure and expertise.
What is the likelihood that President Trump would actually move Space Command headquarters at this point?
We don't know the answer to that, but it certainly seems like the president has the authority to do that. Still, it's important to point out that President Trump, he wants to cut federal spending. And this move would be really expensive. It would take years, cost hundreds of millions of dollars just to recreate what already exists in Colorado. However, Alabama lawmakers have said that President Trump is going to keep this promise to us to put it in Huntsville, and they expect the president will announce the move sometime this month.
There are a lot of people here in Colorado and in Alabama who will be watching this closely. Thanks, Dan.
You're welcome, Bazzi.
One of Colorado's Republican Congress members is taking a stand to try to protect Medicaid from steep budget cuts. Congressman Jeff Hurd, representing the Western Slope and Southern Colorado, is one of a dozen in his party in the U.S. House who have warned their leaders in a letter that they will not vote for a budget that includes, quote, any reduction in Medicaid coverage for vulnerable populations. CPR health reporter John Daly spoke with Hurd about this issue. John, we're not hearing many Republicans these days voice opposition to President Trump's general agenda to slash government spending. What is it about this issue, this particular spending, that Congressman Hurd feels he needs to protect?
Well, this is an issue that will have a huge impact in his district where there are a lot of people who get health care through Medicaid. We're talking about low-income adults, children, pregnant women, people with disabilities, most older folks who live in nursing homes. Here's what Representative Hurd told me.
Protecting Medicaid services for those who need it most is a critical priority for us. And that was what was animating my joining in this letter.
Hurd grew up in his district in Grand Junction. According to his campaign website, his dad was a psychologist working with low-income families. His mom didn't go to college so she could work to support her family. She passed away from cancer when he was a teenager. He said his experience taught him to strive to be a part of the solution. And he says he's been hearing about Medicaid's role from folks in the district.
Certainly for our critical access hospitals and our federally qualified health centers, Medicaid is essential to the delivery of those services.
Now, those facilities operate on thin profit margins, so big cuts could close nursing homes or hospitals and have a disproportionately big impact on rural areas.
That impact on health care in rural areas, there are many Republicans who represent those areas, but only 12 of them signed this letter with Hurd to say that they would not support big cuts to Medicaid. What are those other Republicans saying?
Well, this group of 12 all have a lot of Medicaid enrollees in their districts, and a lot of them are also in swing districts. Republican leaders say they're focused on saving money in the Medicaid program by cutting waste, fraud, and abuse.
We've heard that phrase a lot recently.
Yes, we have. And, Democratic leaders warn that they don't think there is a lot of fraud or waste in Medicaid, and they think that big cuts would hurt people who qualify for the program and really need it. But for this group of Republican lawmakers, in their letter, they say they support targeted Medicaid reforms, like reducing improper payments or modernizing delivery systems to fix problems. Hurd also spoke to me about work requirements.
Certainly work requirements is something that I would support and that I think is one of the areas that I think we can find common ground in finding savings and making sure that the most vulnerable who need these services can continue to rely on them.
That work requirement, what would that look like, and how would that impact the people in his district and across the state?
It would be a requirement to work to get benefits, but more than half of Medicaid enrollees are either children, older than 65, or disabled, so many would be exempt from work requirements, and many are already working. The Urban Institute and Robert Wood Johnson Foundation took a look at this. They found more than 100,000 Coloradans could lose coverage through work requirements. I spoke to policy analyst Catherine Hempstead.
Truth is, there's not a lot of waste, and it's not simple. And what ends up is really you're taking coverage away from a lot of people that need it and that actually are working.
So it's unclear how this will play out. The devil will be in the details.
Those details still to come. Thanks, John.
You bet.
If you're in Metro Denver, you may stumble across a really unusual Easter egg hunt this weekend. A formerly homeless activist named Phoenix Nuarwe is enlisting friends to put the eggs out on the streets in hopes that people experiencing homelessness will find them.
I've been asking around, and the word on the street is homeless lives matter.
Every time they arrest me, they make me strong.
Nuarwe describes himself as a vigilante, and he's a character. He dresses up like a cat with black ears on his head and whiskers drawn on his face. He wants his whimsical actions to help people experiencing homelessness and to raise awareness about the issue. Denverite Kyle Harris has been following this humorous vigilante on a mission. Kyle, how did you hear about him?
Well, I was at this very tense meeting between city workers and people experiencing homelessness and felt a little tap on my shoulder. And then an index card kind of dropped into my lap. It was handwritten. It said, "Denver's most beloved cat-themed vigilante and the founder of the Homeless Lives Matter movement" on it. Had a phone number. Phoenix and I connected, and that's where I learned about this Easter egg hunt that he's doing. Last year, Phoenix, who experienced homelessness himself for several years, gave out $75 of his own money in 30 Easter eggs. At the time, he was living in a halfway house, and he was actually funding the project with cash saved from his Social Security check.
So that was a big donation for him and a big project. Where did he put the eggs?
Phoenix hid the eggs on buses, on trains, in the fountain at Benedict Fountain Park, and also near encampments. The whole idea was to get them near where people experiencing homelessness were staying.
And this year, does he have the same plan?
He's not going to be hiding them in the same places, so don't go to Benedict Fountain Park. But he and some recruits will hide eggs across the Denver metro. And each egg is going to contain a handwritten quote from Jesus, a little cash, and also maybe a gift card for a local restaurant.
Nice.
Easter this year also coincides with 420, the big cannabis festival. He is not hiding them in the festival grounds, but he will have them all up by 8 in the morning that day. They'll be in Capitol Hill, in Inglewood, in Aurora, and also along East Colfax Avenue. And to make this year's Easter egg hunt even bigger, even better, he has reached out to friends and raised a total of $200 this year to put into way more eggs, and he plans to include some free meal vouchers donated by Cafe 180 in Inglewood.
Great. I would imagine, though, that there will be people who come across these eggs who are not experiencing homelessness.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you find an egg with some money in it, you might go buy something. Happily, Phoenix has written in each egg a cautionary note that you should give that egg to someone who actually needs it. He also acknowledges some people not experiencing homelessness may keep the money for themselves, and that's the risk.
Now, you mentioned that he's gathered this extra cash this year for the eggs, but this is still not thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars that will have a major impact on homelessness. So what is this about for Nuarwe? What is he hoping to accomplish?
I mean, a few dollars can go a long way to having a little additional comfort in your life. But I think for Phoenix, what he's really hoping to do is show that if he can do this, as someone who's been homeless, who's struggling, can figure out how to support people, so can you, so can I. We all have the power to make the world just a little bit better, and there's no reason not to.
This holiday weekend is certainly a good time to think about being generous. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you.
Additional reporting for today's show came from CPR's Caitlin Kim. Thanks for your support of Colorado Today. Be sure to tap follow in your podcast app and leave a review when you have a minute. Stay warm this weekend, and we'll see you Monday. I'm Bazi Kanani. This is CPR News.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, where teachers can save 5% every day. Download the Safeway app and verify your teacher status for exclusive offers and discounts. Get started at Safeway.com or in the Safeway app.